Hello and welcome to the Soma Show, episode number 6. Today my amazing guest is Nico Ortiz. Nico is a fantastic human, musician, painter, photographer, and perhaps most famous or infamous as a barber. Nico is fabulously curious and kind. And in this creative conversation, we are going to hear his thoughts on the very beautiful human condition. We'll hear about how he creates a safe space in this neighborhood barbershop, how he makes music, what he thinks about art, and to keep it weird, his 2 theories on ghosts. And afterwards, stay tuned, be sure, for a very special treat. We will get to premiere a video he worked on, a music video he worked on this summer during our COVID experience. And it's a neat and strange snapshot, very cool, very artistic, quite an adventure. And that will come on right after our interview. So please enjoy this interview with Nico Ortiz, my friends. Cool. Say hello.
Take just some digging.
Hello. This is episode 6 with Nico Ortiz, and you get a special cup when you're on the show. So this is your coffee in the crystal skull.
Was this the previous interviewee?
Yeah, exactly. This one didn't go so well. So please do better. All right.
I'll absorb some energy.
There you go. Exactly.
Thank you.
And then there's water and stuff here. And this is my little drink. Good Sunday fun day. So I know last night, so Nico and I went out to eat and had the best conversation. I wish we just would have recorded that whole thing.
It's all over. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. So just say all that again. It sounded really smart.
It's all gone.
It's all gone. It's Sunday. We're done.
It's a very windy day.
Yeah. I think so there's 3 things that are most fascinating to me in your life. There's the filmmaking, the music making, and then the whole barbershop thing. So those are the things that I'd love to touch on today.
Okay.
But I think, they're all equally fascinating. So let's start with the barbershop, just because right now it's so curious to me because it's kind of like a petri dish. You're getting a bit of everything.
Absolutely. It's always interesting, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, should I start at the beginning?
Start at the beginning.
I didn't intend to ever be a barber.
Right.
It was a family business.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get into it until I was 29, and I was looking for work. I grew up in the barbershop. I had been working the previous 6 years as a bike messenger, and I got into an accident, which kind of woke me up, and I realized that I couldn't do it forever. Mm-hmm. I could, but chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for work, and my brother had already been working at the shop.
Okay.
And I was griping and moaning about looking for a job that would give me some freedom. And he mentioned that I should just work at the shop for a while, because I grew up in the shop. I knew how it operated. Mm-hmm. So I just did it on a whim as a temporary thing. And I think the petri dish aspect that you brought up is kind of what pulled me into it. I'd never been into like style or hairstyles and stuff like that. It just wasn't my thing, so sorry everyone that's my customer that sees this.
He likes you for you, not
I
your
like
hair.
I like the dynamics of it. I like the stories from people. I was always kind of introverted before that. Mm-hmm. Not shy or anything like that. I kept to my own, and I kept to my tribes, let's put it that way. And I had probably more naive ideas about the way society worked. But working in the shop exposed me to everyone. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone came to the shop. And my dad had started it back in the 60s. And he was the kind of character that got to know everybody in the city. From the highest ranking politicians to the homeless guy on the street, like literally, and everybody in between. And I knew that about him, but I had never been like that until I was working there, and I was exposed to all these different people, and I started seeing the common threads that pulled people together that I never knew existed before, which I should have known. And that kind of locked me into it. That more so than the actual, I know barbers that are like really into like hair and like making it work, and I am. So I love the artistic part of it too, of course. It's hands-on, but it's the people really that brings me back to it, and cemented the fact that I wanted it to be my career.
Okay.
And at this point in time, it's really interesting coming off the pandemic. Well, we're still in the middle of it, I guess, but the quarantine, I should say, that aspect of it, everyone's kind of coming back out into the world again, in different forms and in different modes, I guess. Everyone has their own take on it, and there's no real like leadership as far as like how we're supposed to reintegrate into society. And I'm seeing firsthand how people are approaching it.
And you have to write your own playbook for your place.
Absolutely, yeah. There's like vague ideas about how we're supposed to like go back into the. Everyone says the new normal or whatever, but I don't buy that. I said to you before, there's no such thing as normal.
Right.
Things are always weird. It's just right now they're just got a little weird for everybody at the same time.
Yeah.
That's all. And there's no real like city or state like leadership as far as reintegrating, and that's fine for us. Like we can run the shop that way.
Would you listen anyway? No, I mean, it's
to a certain degree, yeah.
From what you've said though, it's like I've seen you be so like putting your clientele way before any like you're very concerned. Of course, and you're making sure and taking extra steps. So at least in your case, you don't really need a city to.
No, not really. I don't think we do as a shop, which maybe that's arrogant to say, but I listen to science more than politics in general. So I'm letting that be the guide as far as how we reintegrate.
Right.
But I will say that there's a lot of shops out there that aren't, like they've never, they just kept continuing as everything was normal, which, whatever, that's their business. But I'm more concerned about as far as the disease goes and the virus, I don't want to spread it to other people. I don't want it to come to the shop and like get out there.
Right.
So, that's dictating my actions more than anything else.
Right, absolutely. What would be, it's a very sensationalist question, but what would be like two extreme ways that people are looking at it? Because you're seeing a total cross-section, a total spectrum.
Sure.
So what would be like two extreme cases of total quarantine and like, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing like the super extreme, super careful people, because I think they're still being cautious. Some of my friends are still going to come back in the shop because they're waiting for everything to kind of calm down, which is totally. I'm taking everybody's opinion as valid right now, unless they're just totally like basing it off of nothing but their own thoughts. So I don't think we've seen the extreme yet as far as the super careful people go, but there have been instances of like panic attacks. You can just feel the energy. Like when have had so many people come in, this is the first thing they've done besides grocery shopping, maybe, as far as like being around other people, and you can feel it off of them. You can feel a little bit of tension, but also a lot of relief at the same time. And like I think everybody's waiting to have some kind of contact again, and like just to feel like things are okay, basically. So I think that panic attack is probably the most extreme as far as like a physical manifestation of worry. On the other hand, there are people that are totally ready to go. Like they're and the interesting thing is like I think every shop cultivates its own clientele within a certain range. So I'd like to think that we're a barometer for everything, but we're not, to be honest. It's a barometer for the culture that we've created within the shop.
Sure.
So I can only speak within that parameter really. So we're not getting people that are coming in like ripping off their masks, you know, saying like, you know, whatever the microchips are taking over. Like, we're not getting that so much. Well, I'm sure some of them think that. They're just not saying it because they don't want to say it in front of us.
They know better.
But so I haven't seen an extreme in that way either. When we first opened up, it was in October, so we had we went as long as we could without being open, and it finally hit a point where we had to open up or shut the shop down, one of the two. So we opened up in October, and at that point in time, we got people that were okay with what was going on in a more serene way, like people that were in the medical profession or people that were delivery drivers, people that had been working this entire time.
Okay.
And they've been dealing with it since day one. They had no choice. They never shut down. They couldn't isolate to a certain degree. And that was interesting because they had a handle on it in their own way. And they were still being super cautious.
Because they'd already been dealing with everything. Okay. And
I'm seeing a delayed effect in that now because, and I feel it myself. Like when we first opened up, the first couple of weeks, I was like, how are we going to handle this? And then once we got the routine going and started realizing how easy it actually was, then it was more just like reintegrating with people, and I was ready for that. So within 2 weeks, I was fine, and I feel like so there was that first wave of people that never could get away from it, and then where I kind of jumped in the middle, and now we're getting people that are starting that journey, kind of. So now it's a cross-section of all those coming in the shops. And it's interesting sometimes because you can see like some people are laughing, having a good time, talking, totally like normal, and other people are just kind of like maintaining and holding, and like you can tell they're having a great time, but they're like tense, kind of like a deer in the headlights ready to bolt almost. Right. Which is, I totally get that. I mean, we've reprogrammed our instincts, our social instincts, to be almost unhuman in a way. Like we're social creatures. We're supposed to be around each other.
Absolutely. It occurs to me like, and I think we've talked about this before, but so there are people that haven't been touched in a year, and not only are they coming to your shop, you know, they haven't been around people, but their heads are getting touched.
Right.
Like that's, you know, we've talked about like energy transfer before, and I've always wondered how you leave that. So I guess there's two questions there. One, it's got to be kind of an honor, like to be someone's first contact and to help them feel better and look better. But how do you deal with that energy normally? Like if someone's, you know, angry or upset just in general, and then right now, do you just sense a difference between the time someone sits down in the chair and the time someone leaves? Like, is there just an easing or?
I'm not sensing an easing right now, to be honest. I think, so in normal times or whatever, I've had to kind of, and I think every barber stylist has to do this, where you build up almost like a psychic wall, where you get so involved with your clients and you know them so well, and I've known them for years, and I've been with them through like childbirth and marriages and divorces and medical emergencies and everything. I know them, but it's still most of the time in a professional capacity, so it's not as close as a friend or a lover or whatever. There's got to be a wall there, but it's not a physical wall. You're touching them, and you are soaking up that energy. So it's a skill that I think everyone in that profession has to build up, where you build kind of an emotional, psychic wall that you don't allow anybody to get past, in a way.
So you don't need to feel the emotion. You just need to be there and honor.
It's probably dependent on the person. Like I think it's probably dependent on how you are as a person. Because I think it's okay to feel and to have emotions and to have empathy with these people. With these people.
All of us.
but you can't bring it home with you, I guess, is what it is, to make it more simple. There's days when it's great. Like, you have people come in and they're in a great mood. Somebody just got married. Somebody just had a kid. Somebody's just having a great day, and somebody's just a good person, and everything's great. It's like you feel awesome. Like, that kind of energy is amazing, because you can actually absorb that and like turn it into something good. Then there's other days where you get hit with a barrage of like, my mom just had a heart attack. I lost my job and I'm gonna have to move. I've just found out that I have diabetes. Whatever it is, and it almost seems like it happens in waves. And days like that are tough, because that's when the shield really counts. You have to be there and be with them and help them, maybe, if you can. I guess that's up to the barber or stylist too. I'd like to try to, if I can, but you're also not a therapist per se. You're not a doctor. You're more of a confidant.
Like your dad's dad used to say, therapy.
Therapy. It's therapy.
Right. I think sometimes the opportunity of just sitting down and being with someone for a half hour, that's something that a lot of us don't get to do very often.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, just providing the platform. I mean, yes, we're getting a haircut, or we're getting a style or the beard trimmed, but wow, it's kind of like my platform to just maybe talk.
Sure.
And that can be hugely therapeutic. It's
a separation from their usual circles. It's interesting. I look at it from the outside point of view, because I grew up. Once again, it was a family business. I've never really gone to other barbershops. I mean, I go to them just to visit other barbers and stuff like that. But I don't, in a weird way, I don't have access to the outside point of view, because I don't know what it's like to look for a barber or to have that necessarily.
That's true.
Because I don't do that. I cut my own hair, or I have other barbers that I've known for years cut my hair, and I get it done in 5 minutes, because I'm like, I got another haircut, so you just buzz me down real quick or whatever.
Well, I'm letting you know that's how it feels.
Okay.
So
I can guess.
It's awesome, because I find you so easy to talk to, and I think maybe everyone feels that way, but because you seem curious and compassionate, and I mean, I know you're curious and compassionate, so I think that probably translates really well in that setting.
Well, thank you, first of all. I hope to be. I do enjoy people, and I enjoy stories, and which I guess kind of almost leads to the other aspects of what you want to talk about.
Yeah, that's perfect. Tell me about filmmaking and stories.
I love stories, and I love what people go through and how they see things, and seeing different ways of seeing things, and so that probably lends itself a lot to the barbering, because I hear stories and like that I'm privy to that I can't tell anybody else, and once again, there's common threads that people have from all walks of life, in all classes, all races, all economic levels, that are so basic and so common, and they make so much sense when you think about it. Like, people just want to have a decent life. Most people don't want the world, they want everything. Of course they take it, but most people just want to be happy, and they just want to have a comfortable, decent life with good people around them, and that goes across the board. But there's always stories about how they get there, or how they don't have it, or how they had it within their grasp and they lost it. Like, just the classic themes of any literature or anything. And
so you're seeing films play out
in
different versions all day long. Absolutely. That's
but with the same common themes all throughout. But every story is completely unique. I mean, nobody out there is the same. Nobody.
Right.
So when I was young, I've always been into folklore and stuff like that too. I love like stories of the Norse gods, or like, any kind of like ghost stories, witches in the woods, stuff like that. I've always been and I was an avid reader when I was younger. Still am, not as much. I just don't have the time, but So that led me into, I guess, being an artist in a way. I feel like I'm kind of like and as far as that goes, a jack of all trades. I dabble in a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Paint, write, poetry for a while. I was really into that. I was dabbling in everything, but it always comes back to the story. Mm-hmm. Even with like photography or painting, like my goal is to try to get like a complete story into that frame somehow. Like, I mean, how to describe it exactly?
Almost like with every photo you take, you could have you already know the story that's behind it.
Right. To me, it should contain the entire story within that photo. Like, that's my goal anyway. Mm-hmm.
So would you say filmmaking would be your favorite of the arts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing about filmmaking I like is that it actually encapsulates everything. Every other art form goes into filmmaking. It's visual, cerebral, it's physical, it's sound. So you have music, writing, aesthetics, like basically to me, and I could probably be corrected, but every aspect of every other art form is wrapped up in filmmaking, which makes it really like intense and takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication, but the end result is amazing. You know, it feels more complete to me. Plus, I think it's just the newest of the art forms, really.
It's true.
Whereas you could argue like music is probably the oldest, maybe. But filmmaking's only been around for over 100 years, really. And I think it's just like a baby. There's so much potential to it, and we've only scratched the surface. Like, we have rules of filmmaking, and like obviously Hollywood and even Bollywood and the new Korean cinema. They all have an aesthetic and a kind of a playbook, I guess. And people get used to it. The audience gets used to it. But in reality, there's so many different ways to tell a story through that medium that haven't been scratched yet. And that's kind of what interests me. I want to see if I can push that. And like, I haven't done narrative in a while. Most of my stuff I've done some music videos. Before that, I was doing more. There's a genre called tone poems. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's like
Tell me about that.
It's kind of a nicer way of saying experimental cinema, I guess. So there was a movement of experimental cinema since the beginning, really, where you're juxtaposing images and trying to like get an expression or an emotion out of just the images themselves. And I guess a tone poem, which is kind of a generic term for what filmmakers have been doing for the last 20 years or so, is more about pulling an emotional response out of a piece of video or film that doesn't have a narrative to it. It can be like a series of images or even abstract or surreal kind of images that puts the viewer in a particular state of mind without a story. Okay, so you still know what's happening, but it's more of an emotion. It's an emotional response. And someone telling you a story. Right. Okay. And you might not even know what's going on. You might not know what you're looking at. It could be colors. It could be anything, really. So that makes it kind of a generic term. Yeah. It could be like, like swirling colors in water or juxtaposed with the stars or something like that. I'm just pulling out the top of my head. But or it could be people. Like, you could have first thing that comes to mind is maybe like a steady stream of like still shots of people with different emotions on their faces. Like maybe set around one particular emotion a little bit longer than others, where people don't even realize that they're being pushed into that particular state of mind. Experiments. So quicker and provocative and and that's I've really been enjoying that kind of stuff. I guess it's almost like psychological experimentation. Yeah. Well, and so that's interesting because that plays into, because you're so curious about people and the commonalities between people, and so this is an art form where you can kind of get in there and, into the psychology of through that art. Yeah. So maybe that's the opposite of the barbering part.
Right. You're coming in.
The barbering, I'll help them, and the filmmaking, I'll get into their brains.
Mess with them.
But it's fun. It's. I think that's why people enjoy film, though. It takes them down a path. Even the simplest film, it'll take them down a path that maybe they've even thought of before, and they know the story over and over and over again. I mean, how many remakes of movies are made?
We never get sick of them, right? The good ones that
they keep going.
Transport us somewhere.
Somehow they keep going. People know what to expect out of them, but they still enjoy them. There's probably something to that too. Actually, like the simplicity and the comfort of repetition. It's probably the opposite of like the tone poem thing I was talking about, where you know what to expect. That kind of filmmaking, I totally enjoy it. I love cheesy movies. I can watch anything. I can total schlock I can watch. But
what is your favorite type of movie to watch?
Favorite type of movie?
Like I guess there's like drama, there's action, there's romance.
I guess if I had to pick like the big genres.
Yeah, like if you had to.
I love science fiction.
Okay.
I love science fiction because I think it's a mistake to think that science fiction is about the future. I think that science fiction is usually about the present. And it's pointing directions that we could go into, or things that probably are just about to happen. Like the best science fiction to me is more predictive. It's not really giving you something that's so fantastic that it'll never happen, like fantasy or something like that. It's usually pointing to something that's right around the corner and where we're heading. And
like
it's
Star
usually
Trek,
the case.
a lot of that stuff's coming true, like so quick.
Look at the old H.G. Wells novels, like Food of the Gods was basically about genetic engineering before that was even a thing. War of the Worlds. Edgar Rice Burroughs, his books, he described space travel almost exactly like it would happen before any of that science existed. He just, I don't know if he was tapped into it or it was a coincidence or what, but I tend to think that some people are actually tapped into, or they can just see it. They just have an intuitive sense for where things are going.
Right.
And I love it.
Scientists can pick up those ideas as seeds, maybe, and run with it.
Yep, they can run with it, or maybe it's even collective consciousness. It could just be the scientist might be seen at the same time as the artist, and I think everything kind of works together that way.
Right. Yeah.
And people work together that way too. Like even people that aren't actively seeing where we're heading, they're the ones moving in that direction, if that makes sense. They're like, it's like planting the seed. You put the idea in somebody's head that this could happen, and it can happen. If they never think of it, it probably won't happen. But the more present it is in their life that it could be a possibility, the more it just becomes reality. Just because that is the thought process.
Absolutely. And things are happening so fast with technology, and that's one thing that I know, or I imagine that I don't know if it's a struggle, but like the movies in the last 10 years, how drastically different, with, it's beyond green screens, and so much is created in the computer, and like how much of that is super fun to you, and then how much do you feel like might be being lost, or does it just depend on the type of movie?
I have a love-hate relationship with it, I think. I think I love the fact that you can create anything right now. Like I love the Marvel movies and Lord of the Rings was amazing, of course. Like I love that stuff too. So as a consumer, I love it because I can zone out and just enjoy it and watch it. It's like reading a comic book or a graphic novel to me.
Right.
It's like candy almost. But from a filmmaking sense, I feel like it's a cheat. I think it's if something's too easy to do, it sucks the creativity out of it. You need resistance. You need. I think as a creative person, you need obstacles to get where you're going to make you think of how to get there. It's I know a lot of people are probably disagreeing with me on that one, but I just think
We can get
ingenuity has to come from something, right?
Right.
It's and maybe I'm just jealous because I don't have access to CGI like that.
Do you want $1 million budget? Would that help you?
I would totally change my tune, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it ultimately comes down to the story, of course. Mm-hmm. Everything comes down to the story. But when I process like how I'm going to film something now, I have zero to limited budget. Mm-hmm. So I have to figure out how to do things. And some of my favorite films are kind of the crappiest effects. Like John Carpenter's The Thing. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think we just talked about that. Mm-hmm. Complete is no CGI. It's made in the 80s. It's all like rubber and blood capsules and like these made up creatures. But it's amazing. It still looks good. It still looks great. It looks
done
real.
Well. Okay.
Because it's actually, and this is like a paradox, right? Because you're filming something. Once you film it, it's not real. It's on film.
Okay.
So how do you make that look real? Mm-hmm. Like you can use CGI. But to me, it still kind of looks like a cartoon, no matter how good it gets. Mm-hmm. But if you use it's almost like if you use something that's so fake that it can't be real, and you film it the right way, it's hyper real, in a way. To me,
it takes. I mean, obviously, if you're doing things CGI, it takes skill on the computer with the programs. But as a filmmaker, it's going to take more skill to make something look really interesting and believable.
Something visceral.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's just more where I'm at. Probably.
Right. Well, we work with what we have.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll find some grants laying
Absolutely.
around. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So if you were going to work on something now, would it be one of these experimental films that you were talking about, or?
No, I'm actually getting more into narrative right now. It's been years since I've done narrative stuff.
So you're ready to tell a story? I'm
ready to tell stories again. It just kind of called me lately. Mm-hmm. There's been some major events in my life that made me think about things in a different light, and this happened just prior to the whole COVID experience. And like going through that, and the early months of that kind of brought anxiety and uncertainty as far as like my business, my finances. The early days actually got me more thinking about mortality and if we were actually going to make it through this or not, and who would make it through. It honestly seemed to me in the first couple of weeks, if not the first couple of months, that I don't know, a quarter of the people I knew would be dead by the end of this, and thank God that was not the reality. But that's kind of how I perceived it from the media that I was taking in, and we just didn't know at that point. You know, I don't think it was wrong to act the way we did. I think that we were just hedging our best bets. I thank God that it didn't turn out that way. But that whole thing, and then plus having like a lot of time to sit around and think for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Kind of like it gave me the mental space to kind of create stories again.
Okay.
Because it takes a lot of time. You have to step outside. For me, anyway, when I write, I have to step outside of my own life. Somehow apply that life to something that doesn't pertain to me. And it takes time. In the past, I've taken time off. I'll go on a 2-week trip somewhere, and it takes like 3 or 4 days just to forget what's going on at home, and then I can just like sit down and write for a week, and not think about home. I wish I could be the kind of writer that could just wake up and go into the dining room and just work on it, but I get too wrapped up in the day-to-day kind of stuff. And so anyway, the whole course of the last like probably 2.5 years of my life just got me thinking about mortality again, and how people think about it. Like there's such a wide range of reactions to death, and the beauty of it, all the way to the shame of it, and everything in between. It's just been sitting in my head. So I'm kind of filtering it through stories. I'm planning on doing a series of short films that should tie together as a complete narrative in an anthology form, I guess. But it's going to be about different death rituals that cultures apply.
Okay. So essentially how people deal with death and dying.
Right. How they deal with it, and some of them are about like the actual death rituals, like what do you do with the body?
Okay.
How do you grieve? But then some of it's going to be about concepts of death as well. Like what is the concept of death? Is it a passing? Is it an end? Because different cultures have different ideas about that.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think it's, I don't want to say doorway. That sounds too easy. I think it's a chapter, honestly. I think we're all living in a particular chapter of existence here right now. And whatever the next chapter is, we'll find out when we get there. I have no idea. Do
you feel like, but you don't in any way feel like that's it?
No, absolutely not. There's no way. And you know, in a certain way too, it's like, if it is the end, then what's the harm in believing that it's not? Because we won't even know. It'll be over.
It's true. No harm, no foul.
So why not go for it? You know.
Right.
But I do. I've had experiences where I've felt that happen, or people have left. They didn't blank out. They didn't just like disappear. They left the building.
Felt presence is leaving a body, not just turning off.
No, not turning off at all. Like I don't know where they went, or how, or if they remember anything, or if I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. I think that when you're gone, you're gone.
Okay.
You're wherever you go to next.
Okay.
And
so
why would you go back?
You don't believe in ghosts. You just like ghost stories.
I love ghost stories.
Okay.
I have a whole nother concept of ghosts.
Okay.
I do believe in something like ghosts.
Okay.
I don't think that they're spirits of dead people. I don't. Why would you want to stick around? Like, even if I had revenge on my mind, I'd be like, I'm done. Out.
Okay. So what do you feel ghosts are?
I think there's a couple different things. I do believe that you can leave imprints behind.
Okay.
And I think everyone has experienced this at one time or another, where you have a feel. You walk into a room or a house or a place, and it feels a certain way, right? Whether it's like, oh, cozy, or it feels weird, or like off somehow.
Sure.
And I think that, and this isn't just a particularly human thing. I think it can come from animals and maybe nature, even to a certain degree. Like, there's moments that happen that are really intense that leave an imprint on a certain area.
So it would be an intensity and energy that, like almost escape the person or human, and so that energy remains.
Right.
Okay.
Almost like an echo, like a time echo, almost. Okay. Like
something
that you can reverberate through
love
time.
Or something traumatic. Probably.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Like anything, like, and who knows? Maybe it's even like, maybe there's even boring spots like that all over the place that we don't even realize.
Yeah.
But we can feel
we don't
the
feel
intense
the boring
ones.
Spots. That's true.
Right.
Like, meh, whatever.
I mean, there's been places that I do a lot of like hiking and stuff too, and there's certain areas where you can feel like something happened there, like creepy or just bad even. But that, I mean, obviously that's the easy part to go to because that's the ghost story. Right. There's also good spots too. So I think there's like time imprints / echoes that can happen.
Okay. That
can make you feel ghostly, but it's not really a ghost. I also think that there's, I'm going into a totally different direction now.
Great, love that.
But I've had experiences also that were pretty intense that it took me a while to try to figure out. I think that what people think of as ghosts might actually just be other beings or creatures or not animals. They could be something that doesn't even like translate into the way we see reality. It could be something that coexists with us. There's just so much we can't see yet. Right. Yeah. I mean, it could be like something we could see with another eye, or maybe we'll evolve or devolve at a certain point where we can like be on the same plane. You know, it's kind of like the concept of different alternate realities existing at the same time, which is becoming, not even becoming, has become a scientific certainty to a certain degree that that's real. We have infinite realities happening at the same time.
The
multiverse. And I think every once in a while there's like a hole punctured in, or maybe you, I don't know if I believe this so much, but I had an experience that I actually had to talk to different people about, because I was trying to figure out what it was, and because it freaked shit out of me, really. So I talked to a pastor, a priest, and a rabbi about it, and I wanted to hear from like a more theological sense what they thought
and
had
now you're
happened.
going to talk to us about it. Maybe?
I don't know if I'm gonna talk. I can't tell you the whole story. Like it was interesting.
Because it sounds almost like a joke. A preacher, a pastor, and a rabbi.
Walking to a barbershop.
Walking to a bar.
To talk about
ghosts.
Possible demonic possession.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be for the second interview.
I can do an hour on that one easy.
Okay, cool.
I lived in a place that was one of these places that had that kind of energy to it, and I think I got used to it after a while. But
that would be interesting.
Everyone
to
that
actually
came
get
over
used to an energy that was troubling in the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't realize it's kind of like being in a strange relationship or living at the top of a mountain. You just kind of get used to the pressure.
Yeah.
So I'll go into the story a little bit. So the place I lived in, it had this kind of energy right off the get-go. I think I've actually told you some stories about the place, about like
Did they have the strange room in the basement?
Strange room in the basement. So there's a strange room in the basement that was kind of built like a cell that I couldn't figure out what it was for. Super bad energy. I discovered it when I first moved in. Actually, it was locked from the outside, so I broke open the lock, looked inside, and it's a tiled room. It looked like a cell with a small seating area and a drain. And that was it. And it just felt weird. I was like, whoa, I can't figure out what this is. So I actually got another lock, locked it up, and I never opened the door again. It was that weird. But the same house, it was, there's a lot of weird stuff that happened there, and a lot of strange people were attracted to it too. My whole family and all my friends have stories about that place.
Okay, and you just decided to stay.
Yeah. Probably as a challenge.
Okay, why not?
It goes back to the stories, right? Like, the haunted house story, like I dare you to stay in the house all night. Okay.
I dare you to stay in the house all year.
So, I won't go into all the details just because of how I think of this particular thing, and I think that there's certain energies that can be attracted to ideas. I guess in a theological sense, it's the whole idea of you can call the devil to you by saying his name, or like in urban mythology, there's Bloody Mary, right?
Sure.
Bloody Mary can't hurt you until you say her name 3 times in the mirror.
Okay.
And I kind of think there's some validity to that. Like,
the
more you think about things,
you're
calling its attention to you,
and you're matching it so it can find you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm always hesitant to tell the whole story.
All right, skip it. So back to the joke. There's a priest, a rabbi, and a shaman.
So there's this thing that happened that basically involved me seeing something that I know is real, that scared the living shit out of me, and the person I was with at the time ended up kind of causing our disillusion.
Okay.
I think because it was hard to handle like this experience. We both woke up in the middle of the night having, I think we brought it with us. We saw something happen. We were in Chicago. This person changed form kind of in front of us and this is going to sound really vague, but a homeless person came up to me while my partner was in this bathroom with Dunkin' Donuts, and came up to me and pointed at me and said, "I know who you are. I know you. I know you." And he was homeless. Like, he was disheveled, dirty. He sat down. I kind of stood away from him, didn't make any contact, and he sat down in the little stool. She comes out. I'm like, "We gotta go. This guy's weird." And she's like, "What guy?" And I look at him, and he kind of changes. I know this sounds crazy. It sounds so crazy when I say this out loud. He became
like a
clean,
shapeshifter?
like he, but it wasn't him. Like he, all of a sudden, shook it off somehow and woke up, and he was somebody else. He was this businessman, like clean. His hair was in place, and he looked like he just woke up. Like he didn't know where he was.
It's almost like someone possessed him to make some sort of contact.
Yeah. And he was like all freaked out, and he looked all shaken, and he grabbed his briefcase, which I hadn't even noticed before, and like walked out the door.
Whoa.
Super fucking weird.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. That started it off. So I think something followed me home that night, because we went home and we went to sleep, and we both had these incredible, just the dreams that we had were like brutal, violent, like horrible dreams, and we both woke up at the exact same time, like shaking. Like I felt like I was gonna throw up. This dream was so bad.
Wow.
I've never had a dream like
matched?
that. No,
but just not.
Separate dreams, but they had common themes to them.
Okay.
Mutilation, and there was something watching us, and we both saw it, which thank God, because that I would just,
at least
I would never told
validation.
anybody the story, because I would be like, I'm crazy,
Right.
or I had a really weird trip or something, you know.
Yeah.
But at least having somebody else there gives it some validity. Super tall, taller than the ceiling here, like bent over watching us, just watching. And I just got the sense that it was watching us to see what, I think that it
was it protected?
gave us, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
It gave us these dreams to see what we would do with it. That's how I interpreted this. And I could be completely wrong. I felt like an experiment. Like it basically, and I can't, it's just, I've gotten over this so many times in my head to try to figure it out. And I think whatever it was followed us, maybe me in particular, because of the whole, like, I know who you are thing, and made contact with us, but not in a good way.
Right.
But it didn't feel malicious either. It felt apathetic, like we were test subjects or something.
Yeah.
I think it just wanted to see what we'd do.
How bizarre.
And it just was staring at us, and I couldn't see the face or anything. We just see the shape of the body.
Right.
It was human looking, but it wasn't. It was kind of like crunched over and like looking at us. Yeah. So, I did not intend on telling this story.
I know, this is very interesting on this sunny Sunday. So, and this is cool because I have not heard this story before. What did the different religious leaders say about that? Because technically, I think that's the place to go, because they are kind of the bridges.
Right. Yeah.
Between.
I just wanted to know. I was raised Lutheran. I still consider myself spiritual. I don't go to church or anything like that. I think whatever it is that's running the show is bigger than that, and much more like forgiving and allowing than any church has ever given it credit for. But I was curious. I mean, religion has always fascinated me too, because I mean, that's talk about a source of stories. Holy cow!
Right. So best and worst, right?
So the priest and the rabbi both were kind of like, just take it easy, buddy, you know. And I don't know if they believed me necessarily. You know, I think I don't know what they thought.
You might not have had the right open priest or rabbi too.
Probably not. You know. The pastor I talked to is interesting. He's a pastor of a non-denominational church.
Okay.
This is another interesting twist on it, because I had some really intense conversations with him about it. His take on it was that some people are just more sensitive to seeing things that exist around us all the time, which comes back to what I was talking about before, as far as ghosts and stuff like that. Right. His idea was that whatever this thing was, it wasn't necessarily a demon or some supernatural creature. It was just another creature, like I am a creature. But it perceived that I could perceive it.
Well, and in your state, because I know that state you were in was right, you know, it's like before we go to sleep or right when we're waking up. I do think we're literally in a different place. It's such a precious, so yeah, that you could see something that would make sense. That
little window. Yep. I was definitely awake.
Yeah.
But so anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna go with his. I think he was the closest to what I would think, is that it just saw a window that it knew that it could do something, whether it was like curious or it didn't feel mean. I didn't feel like threatened.
Yeah.
I mean, the dream was messed up, but I didn't feel like it was like a source of threat. It just felt like it was something different that I've never seen before, and
it never happened again.
It never happened again. No, it didn't. The interesting thing is, I talked to the pastor, 5-6 years after that happened, and I hadn't brought it up to him since then. But I brought it up to him, and I wanted to thank him for talking to me, and because I understand how insane that can sound to
oh, the stuff they must hear, right?
Yeah. So I brought it up, and he had no recollection of talking about it for some reason.
Really?
I was like, you don't remember the story? And he's like, no. So I related to him again, and he just had no recollection. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm crazy.
Add to the story, right? Like it was wiped from his mind.
I don't know. Or he's just so busy he forgot. Or maybe he hears so many crazy stories.
Yeah, you never know.
That he was like, throw it in the bin.
So ask me tomorrow about it, and if I say, what the hell are you talking about? Then you'll be like, oh.
I'll have to tell you the whole story.
Yeah, now you're really going to understand this. That's very interesting. I do appreciate both ways you look at ghosts. I think that's much more likely than someone's soul getting trapped on this plane. You know, that it's either an imprint of emotion. Like those two ways makes a lot of sense, because there are times where, I mean, you've literally seen someone change in front of you.
Right.
And then an entity. So it makes sense in certain states, or when we match certain frequencies, we can either feel or visually see. And I think as humans, we tend to want to see things, otherwise they're not real.
Yeah. And we also tend to not want to see things either, that we don't want to believe in. And I think there's also the idea of the ego that's involved in like a lot of ghost ideas. Like it has to be us, right? It has to be our control. Like we decided to stay here and haunt and get our revenge or whatever. Like
we want to make it.
We
human.
put it about ourselves, kind of like we make it human, and I think that's uniquely human. I don't know if we have that power necessarily. Maybe a few of us do through sheer obstinance, maybe, but I don't think everything's up to us. Like I think when that doorway is open to us, I don't think we have a choice. I mean, supposedly a couple people came back. Maybe they did. I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know.
They could bring you near death and then bring you back, and you can report.
Right.
Well, I guess you can't come to near death. You have to actually cross
die.
over.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess there's people that actually see the white light and go down the tunnel and come back, but I don't count that as dead. I mean, if they can't come back with a story well,
yeah.
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you.
Everything's purple, and we're all this big. I can't buy it.
And we messed with this couple one night. We put horrible dreams into their mind, and we
You should have
watched.
seen them. They were hilarious.
You went and talked to a priest.
Then they broke up.
Yeah. And it ruined them. We kind of thought that might happen. We'll mess with people every now and then. Yeah, that one would make a good film.
It would, but I'm not going to film that one.
And you're done. Yeah, you're like, enough.
Yeah.
I'm done talking about it, actually.
That was just a singular incident that happened. And honestly, I kind of think that a lot of people go through stuff like that. Like I said, if I was alone that night, I would have been like, what did I eat? Or like, what is my mind state going?
Someone else. Well, and it's helpful, right?
Yeah.
Because even when we talk over issues, it's like, am I crazy?
Right.
No, you're not crazy. That makes sense. So, am I crazy? Did you just see that?
Right.
Yeah, when there's someone else that sees the same thing, it's so much easier to trust.
Sure. And things can be explained. And most of the time things are explainable, but, maybe it wasn't the wind. Maybe it wasn't, the cat knocking something over. Maybe it's something just kind of blipped through. And you just cross paths for a second or something.
Right.
I mean, why not? Not only are we not the only things in the world, we're not the only reality in the world either. And that goes for people too. Our realities are all different. They're all subjective to what our experience and what we see. So who knows what else is out there?
Right. Yeah, we just have no idea.
No.
It's fun though to kind of dream some up.
So I'm definitely so the idea of coming back from the dead is definitely not going to be one of the stories that I'll be doing.
Okay, yeah. Leave that one out.
Yeah. And there's different kinds of death too. This is something actually I just started thinking about. As I'm assembling my ideas and writing, I started working primarily on actual death, the actual death and how it's conceived and what happens afterwards. And as often happens when working on anything, I think this probably goes for any artist. You one thing leads to another, and now I'm actually kind of applying the death concept to everyday life. To I guess a simple example would be the death of a relationship.
Okay. So
that's
transitions
also death.
Of all kinds.
Right.
Yeah.
That's also a doorway, and it's also the death of the past, right? So death not only affects obviously the person who dies, but it mostly affects us, right? It's survivors. The funeral is not for the dead person; it's for everybody left behind.
Right.
So what did die exactly to them? That obviously that person is gone, and you're mournful because you'll never see them or talk to them again. But something else died too. Not just that person. Something in you is now dead because there's no going back. It's done. There's no ghost. It's you'll never be able to say that thing to that person again, or it could even be an idea or a concept of the future. We were planning on doing this. I always thought that we'd get together, and now it'll never happen. It couldn't even not be a physical death. It could be an unresolved love that was assumed it would happen, and then the other person gets married, and you're like, oh shit, that's dead. It's not going to happen. There's different kinds of death, and I guess I'm kind of exploring those ideas too.
That's a fun one to explore. I don't know if fun's the right word, because so what you're saying is if a relationship ends, you're mourning that you're not with that person, but that's officially the death of all the future possibilities.
Right.
That we as humans, there's not many animals, and we just don't know right now, that project into the future or
Right.
even worry about it. But we imagine so much.
I think we live in the future more than we probably should.
Absolutely. So we're probably, when a relationship ends, a lot of the disappointment is about the end of that possibility, because you had those dreams,
Right.
you had those.
And it's not necessarily even about that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what could have been,
Right.
which obviously wasn't meant to happen anyway.
Right.
It didn't happen, so.
Didn't happen.
But you still mourn it though, right? You still
Right.
mourn like what could have been.
That's yeah. So the death of I mean, that's a transition in relationships, I suppose. Ways of life.
Ways of life,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Financial hardship or
Mhm.
changes like that. I mean,
Mhm.
it's probably something I won't delve into, but that definitely applies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what just happened to everybody.
Right.
It was the death of an old way of living,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not going to come back. It's we're reforming. We're gonna like reacclimate, but it's not going to be the same as it was before.
Right.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's kind of like
things
Pet
never
Cemetery.
are the way they were
Should
before.
we really try and bring something back
Absolutely
the way it was?
not.
Like, why would we
Why
do that?
would we? That already happened. It already existed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to live in a stagnant moment in time?
Mhm.
Like nothing ever stays the same from second to second.
Mm-hmm.
It's always
And parts of it were
changing.
faulty anyway. Now we know that.
absolutely. Yeah.
So like readjust, and now it's a new way of existing.
Try to cultivate it.
Mhm.
I see what happened in the past year as a compression of change almost. Like we had 10 years worth of change happen in a year. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's hard because we're not used to that happening. We're used to time moving at a certain speed and kind of under our control too.
Mhm.
And we had no control over this at all. Literally, in a sense,
Mhm.
you know, like whether you were actually like terrified by the virus,
Mhm.
or you just decided to maintain because that's what you're supposed to do or whatever,
Mhm.
and didn't really believe in it at all, you were still affected by it,
Mhm.
whether you want to believe it or not.
And then all the protests and everything that
Yes,
happened during
absolutely.
that time. Like, yeah, you're right. It was finally big enough and compressed enough to hopefully make some change.
I think it absolutely did.
Mhm.
What that is yet, I don't know. And that's kind of like bringing it full circle back to the barbershop. That's
Mhm.
kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Mhm.
I think it was just seeing like the little embryonic, like people coming out of their caves again and like peeking out and being like,
Mhm.
who's out there, what's going on?
Right.
But as far as like what really is changed, it's probably already changed. During that time, I don't think we're seeing that yet. I think we're gonna see it throughout the summer, the fall, but throughout the next year maybe,
Mhm.
as people get back together again.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of people had a lot of internal time to like either stagnate, change, or regress.
Mhm.
One of those. And without other people around you to affect that,
Mhm.
it can be more pure,
Right.
I think, and more drastic and sudden.
Mhm.
But now it's like all of a sudden people are coming out and hitting each other again. And I
Mhm.
can even see it within certain cases in the barbershop. There's people that had more erratic behavior in the past are
Mhm.
much more erratic.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm sure that they needed more help during the shutdown than they probably
Right.
got. But that also applies to people that were completely solid that should have been totally okay,
Mhm.
and they have great support systems. I can see that there's a shift in them too, but it's not coming out yet. I can't,
Okay.
and I think as we start to bounce off of each other in the
Mhm.
world again, I think that's when we're going to really see what happened during this past year and like how it's going to affect everything. And I don't know if it's good or bad, probably neither.
Mhm.
Probably just evolution.
Yeah, that's true, because I mean, testing in a lab is very different than testing in the field.
Absolutely.
So now we're being,
because you have the chaos,
right,
and the erratic nature of nature, like that can't really be replicated in a lab. That just happens in the real world.
Right.
It's not a test anymore. It's
real life
reality.
Yeah. We're setting it free.
Right. And I'm curious. I really want to know. I think it's actually going to be a lot better than people think. I mean, there's a lot of thought about, like, obviously people got really messed up during this, and there's a lot of people that are hurting and are going to need a lot of help. But I think as a whole, and I'm probably a little forcedly optimistic most of the time in general, but I think people generally want the best.
Absolutely.
Even if they don't realize it, even selfish people or narcissistic people, you can't exist that way without other people still. So even the most selfish person, in a way,
if no one else is squashed down,
needs other people around.
Yeah.
They need that. So even the worst of us, I think, are craving something out of society that maybe we haven't been getting. And I think the last year kind of made that more clear. I don't think it was different. I think it just solidified the fact that, there is distance.
Yeah.
But like I said, maybe I'm just being blindly optimistic, because people do suck sometimes too.
Hey, it helps. It helps to be blindly optimistic. I know. One of the things. Oh, hold on. Why is that camera off?
It's all gone.
Okay, that camera's on. Hold tight.
Did the power cut off or something?
I can't imagine.
There you go.
It's back. Okay. Damn it, I'm gonna have to edit something.
All right, that's gonna go down to a 5-minute interview.
I know. No, it was. I think it was very recent, but anyway, we got the sound. The sound should have been fine.
Yeah.
Just went on or off for a second there. Anyway, so I know one of the things that we talked about all the time missing over this last year was music. Live music, getting together with people. And you've gone back to practicing now. And so talk to me a little bit, because I love understanding the creative process. So how, with the group that you're with now, maybe tell everyone, like, what instruments you play, how this particular ensemble band was formed, and then what your process is, and then maybe also how music has helped you through this time and what it does for you. It's 20 questions right there.
So, at the beginning.
The beginning.
So I love playing music. I kind of consider myself a musical hack in a lot of ways. I've had formal training, piano, a little bit of violin, and a couple years ago I started vocals at the conservatory because I wanted to get that stronger. I wanted to move away from just punching it out to actually like trying to like do something with the vocals, try to like really reach into that. So that was actually really good. But I feel like, so like I talked about before, I can be kind of a jack of all trades at times. Like I dabble in a lot of stuff. And so I'm trying to focus on the film stuff because I think that's my true calling. But I love music. I mean, I who doesn't really?
Right.
But I absolutely love it, and playing it can be so cathartic. And when you play something that's not only cathartic for you, but for the audience as well, it's sublime. It feels great. So I'll never stop playing music. But with that being said, I have to admit, you know, some people are born into things, and I wasn't born into music. I'm forcing that shit, and like, but I think I do a good job at it. And I'm not putting myself down on it, but it takes a lot of work. whereas like some other things come more natural.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of falls into place, like the filmmaking or painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied piano and violin as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 17, I saved my money and bought a really shitty bass guitar because I wanted to play bass. Because I just love the sound of it. I've always been into metal and punk rock and stuff like that. Mostly leaning toward more like post-punk and hardcore and stuff like that. And I just remember bands like Naked Ray Gun, and there's a lot of Chicago rock that just had super huge heavy bass sounds. And I was like, yeah, leather bass, awesome. So I bought a really crappy bass, and it didn't sound that great. And my brother, I have a brother that's 10 months older than me, Christopher, and we've followed similar timelines, you know. We're close to being twins. And so he bought a guitar at the same time. And he got frustrated playing this guitar and ended up taking it in the alley and smashing it to pieces. He was so frustrated.
That's awesome.
And then he actually ended up he's picking up my bass and playing the bass, and that's been his instrument ever since he found it. And this all leads to a whole other thought that I always had. Like, I always thought that, like, everyone can play an instrument, but they got to find that instrument. Like, what if Chris had forced himself to keep playing guitar? He probably would have been great at it. He would have been good, but it's just switching over to the bass. He developed so much faster. And like what if you're supposed to be a sax player and you just keep trying to play the drums over and over again?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you could be a mediocre drummer or an amazing saxophone player, but you just don't know because you never picked up a saxophone.
It's like picking your dragon, or your instrument has to pick you too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I forced myself to learn how to play guitar.
Okay. Put the pieces back together that were smashed.
I ended up picking up a guitar, and I've been playing that off and on since, primarily.
Okay.
I would sing as well, and sing and play guitar. The last official project I was involved in, Volcanoes, I just did vocals. I was the front man for that band, and that was awesome. That was great because the band was excellent. Just everybody was so good at their instruments, and it was so fun to just be able to channel that without an instrument in front of me and just funnel it right into the crowd and just focus it like a laser beam. It was fun. It was great. Didn't last. The band kind of imploded in on itself a little bit, but as bands do. So since then I haven't played anything, and I actually hadn't played guitar up to this point for probably 6-7 years, something like that, because I've been just singing. And my brother and I, we had the pod going because we worked together, and you know, I didn't want to go crazy sitting in my house by myself all summer during quarantine.
So you're double bubbling.
So so he was like, dude, let's just play some music. So we got together, and as soon as we were able to, with the vaccines and stuff like that, we started like getting a little more in depth. And so a friend of ours, Tim Wick, started playing drums with us. He and Chris had the band called Magnetic Minds with our brother-in-law Jim, who's also now playing with us. I don't really know what this is going to turn into yet, to be honest. It's still in its little embryo form, and like, I think we're gonna go with that. I don't think we're gonna push it. Like, we're all in our 40s now. You know, it's not that changes anything, but I think it changes perspective. When I was in my 20s and even 30s, it was like, let's get this shit. World tour, world domination, gonna be a rock star. Do I want that stuff? Yes. But what's my angle on it now? I'm also running a business. I'm also involved in other projects that are, in all honesty, probably nearer to my heart in a creative sense.
Right.
More like, I feel like that's if I'm going to leave a legacy behind or anything like that, it's going to be through film or writing. And that's my instrument. Like what I said before about finding your thing. Like,
Right.
I think film is actually my instrument.
That's
like,
true.
it just feels natural, and
Right.
like it feels like what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm doing it. And I never doubt myself.
So the music kind of rounds you out, and it adds to your life. Yeah,
Absolutely.
You've got to always have, I suppose, priorities.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's
Certain
catharsis. To me, music is catharsis. It's about that psychic shield that I talked about earlier with barbering. Like that's where that energy goes. Like I can play music and shoot it back out into the world and like get rid of it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I try doing that with other stuff, but music is physical. It's vibrational, and it's all about like it's an actual physical thing. Even like the eardrums, it's all physical. Whereas like painting, I can convey a story, I can get a feeling across, but it's ultimately up to the viewer to determine what they want out of that.
Right.
And
And with
film is kind of the
music or
same.
singing, you're actually
It's direct.
You're sending that energy out, and people are feeling it and hearing it.
Like directly.
Because hearing is feeling.
Right. Directly. And there's no questioning, like you're singing and you're singing something with angst or anger. There's no question about it. You know what that singer is talking about. Even if you can't hear the vocals, you can feel it. You feel the emotion. Whereas like a lot of other art forms, people can read into it what they want to. They can put what they want to into it. We lose the camera again. I'm boring the camera.
It's very interesting. Well, we'll switch to this camera and we'll just stay there. There we go.
Okay. More casual.
Technical difficulties. What the fuck? I don't know what's going on.
It's ghosts.
It's the ghost. Shit. You brought him with
Partners,
you.
maybe.
You brought him with
Gremlins.
you. So I actually cleaned a bunch of crystals out of that, washed this. For some reason, I really wanted the skull one. And now we know why.
Yeah.
It was super important.
It was.
Yes, I like this. You can use it as a prop in your short stories and your films.
The narrator, it'd be like Tales from the Crypt. I'd be like, I've come to you tonight to tell
Right?
you a story of grim doom.
Well, and wasn't it, I forgot, Hamlet, right? Where he's talking to his father's skull or whatever. So was it Shakespeare that said, you know, there is there 8 or 10 human conditions, right? Or is it 4 kinds of stories?
The kinds of stories.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure about the Shakespearean side of that. He might have more.
Okay.
But I think in general there's what, like you're talking about like man versus man,
Right.
man versus nature, man versus himself, and
every
what was the other
story
one?
kind of fits into one of those.
And they do, yeah.
And you're seeing that in the barbershop too, where it doesn't matter who you are, what class you are, what color you are, there's still these very human stories.
Oh yeah, yeah. Universal themes. We're humans. I mean, honestly, everything else is a construct. Like, as humans, we were born to, I guess, on a purely scientific level, reproduce. Right? That was like the primary thing.
Right. Keep existing.
Beyond that, it's like we have our place in nature. As far as like we've reached this Anthropocene age where we've affected nature to the point where we've actually changed the structure of the world irrevocably, which is horrible, but it's also us. We're part of nature. We are. It's what we do, and it might be to our detriment. In fact, it will be at some point because it's going to affect us. But it's also part of nature because we are part of nature. And I'm kind of going off on a tangent here.
Go for it.
But we're all this other construct like jobs, money, the size of your house, what kind of mattress you have, like what's your favorite coffee. It's so like it's awesome in a way, but it's so unnatural. It's not part of like what makes us human. What makes us human is how we interact with other people and how we treat them, and that reflects directly back on us. And I think as people grow older, it has more of an effect. When you're younger, it's easier to kind of like blow things off, and like you think of things like karma as being like a direct blowback or something, like a direct action that'll happen back to somebody or something like that.
Okay.
But I think that it comes with age, like, and it's not something, a realization with age, it's an accumulation of experience. Where if you've tended to treat people shittily in your life, unless you're a sociopath, which is a completely different thing, it's something else, all those things build up in you, and they make you who you are. And as a person with a soul or a center or morality or whatever you want to think of it as, that can eat you alive. And I think that even just tiny little shitty moments throughout your life can add up, and unless you resolve those things somehow or come to terms with them, I think that's how people go bad when they get older, like irrevocably bad or
so
sour.
It's like they become a tumor in that person, and it sours the whole being.
And then they just kind of get shittier unless they like kind of come to terms with that. And I think that's kind of what karma is to me. Like I don't think it's like this cosmic energy that bounces back and forth. I think it's what we create for ourselves, and it adds up over time.
It's a cumulative thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the whole like nice people don't finish last thing, it's bullshit. It's total bullshit, because if you can, hopefully you have time before you die to think about your life for at least a second. That's what I would like, at least.
Well, they say that second lasts
for a long time. So
you get to review, right?
So you get to look back in your life, and if you're happy with that, then what do you got to worry about, really? I mean, and everything else is just like bullshit. Like as far as like I said, money and like all the constructs, they're nice and everything, but it's not human. It's not really part of nature. It's something that we constructed,
human made, but
get
not
through
human.
nature somehow, and then like it's human made, which is part of our power, and that's what brought us to the age that we're in right now, and that's only shifted in the last 150 years, where industry changed, and we decided to dump poisons into our fields and our rivers, and
change the organism of Earth.
We're doing to Earth what I was talking about, doing to yourself over time.
We're
poisoning it, and I know this is something that most people know, but we are the virus. We are now a virus, and there's some danger in thinking this way or whatever some people think, but nature deals with its own, and we are part of nature, and it's humans' ego that makes us think that we're separate from that, or that we're a master of it somehow, or even the concept that we're stewards of the earth. I agree with that on a level of we have a responsibility of being a steward to the earth, but there's also an egoism that comes with that, thinking that we're special, we're above everything else in the planet, and we're blessed with this responsibility of being a steward.
I think we're only should be stewards of the earth because it behooves us to be.
We're
for
part
our
of
own
it.
sake.
But so are the raccoons and the squirrels out in the backyard. They're also stewards of the earth. They're doing more probably for it than we do, on a daily, just by existing and being normal. And
if the earth is a body, and we are the virus, the earth is just going to have a fever. If we're getting out of control, we're going to be the ones that are eliminated. So the organism itself will be fine.
The planet's going to survive fine without us. And I don't think we're going to end anytime soon either. I think
no, it'll be a slow.
This whole thing that just happened this last year might be a practice run for who knows what's next. It could be next time this happens, it could be something that does eliminate half the population.
I think the next thing will be a comet.
I guess we have our choices, right? You have a comet. There's a super volcano in Yellowstone that could go off. It could just be as simple as climate change slowly choking us out.
Right.
I mean, which is happening.
Yeah,
so
that's
already
kind
in the
of
works.
what's happening. Yeah. Pick your doom.
There's plenty of doom, but there always is. There's always doom.
Right.
You know, it's almost like the more, I mean, I want to know all this stuff, but it's like ignorance is bliss, right? Like if we didn't have the science and technology, and like if we didn't know about this stuff, like if I didn't know about the super volcano in Yellowstone, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't
care.
be worrying about it.
Like,
right.
And then one day it would happen, I'd be like, "What's that?"
Yeah. I guess I just want to be one of the ones that goes out right away.
I go back and forth. You know, if there's an
That's
apocalyptic situation, like when I do die, I want to go like pretty fast, but I want to see it right before it happens. I'm like, oh shit, bus. You know, like just so I know, like I don't know. I just want to know. You know, I don't know. I would like to know.
Yeah.
But as far as like an apocalyptic situation goes, I would love, and this is probably like just being into like storytelling and all that kind of stuff. I want to see that happen. I want to like, even if it means pain and stuff like that, I would like to, like, I want to be the last leper on the colony. I want to see everybody else's limbs fall off.
I want to watch that shit. The zombie apocalypse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll try to survive as long as I can.
Yeah.
Machete, no guns.
Machete. Okay, I got
Never
one.
run out of bullets.
That's true. It's very true. Blood everywhere. But you got to get that close. That's the thing with the machete.
Well, if you have to get that close, then it's more incentive to never get that close.
Right.
So it'll make you, I think, make you more careful.
Yeah,
Hopefully I'll never find out, actually.
Excuse me, sir, you're within 6 feet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, back away from the machete. So that's, what, 3 feet?
Yeah,
so I need
so it's about 2 arm lengths. Yeah.
We'll have our COVID blades. Oh my God. Well, thank you for stopping by.
Of course.
To talk with all of us.
Absolutely, thank
and
you.
Sharing. This is pretty cool. We'll have to dive more into the filmmaking next time.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll probably next time have some stuff.
Yeah, to show.
So.